Chapter 273. After half a stick of incense worth of time, Yang Kai quietly began circulating his yuan qi, guiding the turbid qi from his mouth to his forehead. From an outsider's point of view, Yang Kai's forehead was now filled with a faint black qi. Qin Zhe was suddenly surprised. This was clearly a sign that would only appear at the final juncture of the test. Of the hundreds of alchemists who had taken the stage before, only Wang Qi-ren and Dong Qinyen had reached this point, but the former had failed while the latter had succeeded. How could a mere guard do this? Could it be that he was another genius suited for alchemy? Qin Zhe was quite nervous as he stared at Yang Kai deeply, his heart almost jumping into his throat. His martial uncle Xiao had personally told him that as long as he could find a suitable successor for this trial, he would be satisfied. Now that Dong Qinyen had passed, if another one passed, wouldn't his martial uncle laugh his head off? Not only would Hidden Cloud Peak have a successor in the future, but it would also be able to carry forward its legacy. Just as Qin Zhe's heart was filled with nervousness, the black qi between Yang Kai's eyebrows suddenly disappeared. Qin Zhe held his breath on the spot, his eyes widening. Success or failure would all depend on the next moment. As he anxiously waited, Yang Kai didn't respond, but after a long time, Qin Zhe's eyes began to ache, only to see a wisp of black qi appear between Yang Kai's eyebrows. What's going on? Qin Zhe was really confused. The reaction of this young man in front of him wasn't like Wang Qi-ren who spat out a mouthful of black blood, nor was he like Dong Qinyen who successfully forced out the black smoke, so how could this black gas appear back and forth between his eyebrows? This situation was inconsistent with what his martial uncle had told him before. Just as he was feeling anxious and confused, the black qi disappeared. But before he could calm down, the black qi reappeared. Qin Zhe's heart began to beat erratically as the black qi continued to rise and fall. This kind of waiting without knowing the result was really too torturous, especially since the other party's performance was constantly fluctuating between success and failure, making him feel even more tormented. The black qi fluctuated at least a dozen times before the boy in front of him suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a thick turbid qi. As this turbid qi was expelled, the boy's entire body seemed to become sluggish, his head drooping down. He had lost his spirit. F***K. You finally spat it out. Qin Zhe cursed in his heart. If you keep tormenting me a few more times, I'm afraid I won't be able to take it anymore. But how could something like this happen? Qin Zhe furrowed his eyebrows in deep thought. Could it be that this youth's aptitude had barely reached the standard set by his martial uncle, and that was why he had passed the test with such difficulty? Thinking about it this way, it did make sense. Brother Qin. Dong Qinyen looked at Qin Zhe and hesitantly asked, "How is he?" Qin Zhe regained his senses and laughed heartily, Not bad, not bad. Although his aptitude is slightly worse than yours, but he barely passed." Passed again? Everyone below the stage was stunned by this sentence. So many people had gone on stage before, but none of them had succeeded. Even Wang Qi-ren had spat out a mouthful of black blood, but now, a common grade mid-rank alchemist had passed. Even though her rank as an alchemist was very low, she was still the daughter of the Dong family. The Dong family was quite powerful, so it was acceptable that they could cultivate such a talent. But what about the guards? They were just young Lady Dong's followers. How could such a person pass? "Senior Qin, that little brat shouldn't have cheated, right?" Someone below shouted. "That's right, Senior, this person doesn't even know alchemy. How could he pass Grandmaster Zhao's test without an alchemist's rank? He must have used some dirty tricks to achieve this. I refuse to accept this." The smile on Qin Zhe's face immediately froze, his eyes flashing like lightning as he swept his eyes across the crowd, coldly snorting, "This is a poison pill personally refined by my martial uncle Xiao. No one can cheat. Even if an immortal ascension boundary cultivator takes this pill, those without alchemy aptitude will not be able to bear it. If there is anyone who disagrees, come up and give it a try, but if there is anyone who dares to question it, then that is an insult to my Medicine King's Valley, an insult to my martial uncle Xiao." As soon as this big accusation was made, the crowd immediately quieted down. Damn, a little guard who can't even perform alchemy can pass. I don't believe it. An alchemist grit his teeth and fiercely rushed up the stage. Many people quickly followed. A moment later, a large group of people were poisoned, a whole pot of poison pills, at least 500 to 600 of them. By noon, all the poison pills had been taken, but from start to finish, only Dong Qingyan and Yang Kai had safely passed the test. There were also many people who suffered the same fate as Wang Qiren, reaching the final step but failing at the final step, causing many people to sigh with regret. Only now did everyone realize that Grandmaster Xiao had not set out to recruit disciples, but had set up such a difficult test in order to find a suitable successor. After the test ended, Qin Zhe walked over with a smile. Junior brother and junior sister, when will you come with me to Hidden Cloud Peak? If Martial Uncle knows that 2 people have passed this time, he will definitely be very happy. Yang Kai's face remained expressionless, not saying a word, his expression cold. His current status was that of a bodyguard, so naturally he could not overstep his boundaries. Dong Qingyan smiled and said, I'm going to say goodbye to my big brother. Oh, let's go together, quickly say goodbye and we'll go to Hidden Cloud Peak. He couldn't wait to take them to Medicine King's Valley. On the 3rd floor of the Dong family medicine store, Dong Qinghan's fat face wore a wry smile. The news that Dong Qingyan had passed Grandmaster Zhao's test had reached his ears early on. Although he knew that his little sister had been obsessed with alchemy since childhood, he had never expected her to be able to accomplish such a feat worshipping Xiao Fu Sheng as a disciple. This was a good thing no one could refuse. But in the end, she was a girl who had been pampered since childhood, now suddenly changing to an unfamiliar environment. He didn't know if she could handle it. But now, what was done, unless the Dong family was willing to break off all ties with Medicine King's Valley, it would be impossible to poach someone from Medicine King's Valley. The Dong family naturally could not break off relations with Medicine King's Valley, the stakes were too high. Just as Dong Qinghan was smiling bitterly, the Wind and Cloud dual guard's expression suddenly changed and whispered, Young lady and young Master Yang are coming, and there is another person with them. He should be the steward of Medicine King's Valley. Dong Qinghan was startled and quickly got up. Come with me to greet them. Before they reached the door, the sound of someone running up the stairs could be heard. Opening the door, Yang Kai saw Dong Qingyan running up the stairs at a brisk pace. Big brother, I succeeded. Dong Qingyan couldn't wait to tell Dong Qinghan the good news. Dong Qinghan's face immediately stiffened as he reached out and knocked her head, scolding, Nonsense. Such a big thing, why didn't you discuss it with me in advance? Dong Qingyan rubbed her small head, still grinning, not showing the slightest annoyance. Just as Dong Qinghan finished reprimanding her, Qin Zhe, who had followed closely behind, lightly coughed. Dong Qingyan's expression immediately became serious as he quickly bowed. Junior greets Senior Qin. Qin Zhe nodded lightly, frowning slightly. Young Master Dong, since your little sister has passed the test, she is now a disciple of my Medicine King's Valley, the disciple of my martial uncle Xiao, and also this Qin's junior sister. Although she is still a member of your Dong family, you can't hit her at will. Dong Qinghan was stunned. Qin Zhe continued to casually scold him. Alchemist is a noble profession. Different from you spear-wielding barbarians, what you need is brains. Do you understand brains? What if you break her head? Junior sister is a genius in alchemy. If you really break her head, can you afford the loss? Can you afford the wrath of my martial uncle Xiao? Can your Dong family afford the wrath of my Medicine King's Valley? Spear and stick scolding, Dong Qinghan's young master Dong was left speechless. Qin Zhe snorted and continued. You call me senior, but Yen-er is now this Qin's junior sister. In terms of seniority, she is higher than you. How can you hit her? Do you not understand this simple truth? Dong Qinghan was dumbfounded, wanting to cry but having no tears. I just greeted you, I didn't say anything. I know your Medicine King's Valley is overbearing, but she is my little sister. Can't I even teach her a lesson? I've never seen anyone so overprotective. You haven't even entered Medicine King's Valley yet and you're already acting like this. Once you really enter Medicine King's Valley, what kind of trouble will you cause? However, Although Dong Qinghan was extremely depressed, in his heart he was also quite happy. Qin Zhe being so protective of his little sister, after entering Medicine King's Valley, she wouldn't suffer any hardships. Junior knows he was wrong. Dong Qinghan cleverly admitted his mistake. Qin Zhe nodded lightly. Good, young Master Dong doesn't look like an uneducated person. Knowing your mistakes and correcting them is a good thing. Dong Qinghan's fat face squeezed out a forced smile, a smile that was even uglier than crying. Qin Zhe turned around and looked at Dong Qingyan. Junior sister, if you and young Master Dong have anything to say, make it short, I'll wait for you downstairs. Saying so, he floated down the stairs. He had come up here to support Dong Qingyan. After Qin Zhe left, Dong Qinghan ground his teeth and glared at his little sister. You've got the ability, should I call you Senior Dong? Hee. Dong Qingyan giggled, stepping forward and shaking her brother's arm, softly saying, Father. Dong Qinghan helplessly shook his head. I'll tell him, I believe he won't try to stop me. Then, and Father will be proud of me. Dong Qingyan nodded quickly, suddenly feeling like a big stone had been lifted from her heart. Turning to look at Yang Kai, Dong Qinghan whispered, Once you enter Medicine King's Valley, be careful if anything happens, don't involve Yen. He was naturally referring to the Pill Saint's Peak. I know what to do. Yang Kai nodded. Half an hour later, Yang Kai and Dong Qingyan came downstairs. Qin Zhe and the 3 Medicine King's Valley disciples had long since become impatient, so when they saw them come down, they immediately rushed back. Of the 12 peaks of Medicine King's Valley, Hidden Cloud Peak was located in the middle, only 2 mountains away from the Pill Saint's Peak. Arriving at the foot of the peak, looking up, there was only a vague rugged mountain road leading to the top, both sides of which were lush greenery, creating a beautiful scenery. At the foot of the mountain was a stone tablet with 3 large characters engraved on it, Hidden Cloud Peak. At the bottom right corner of the stone tablet was a line of small blood-red characters. Yang Kai took a closer look and saw that the line of small characters was actually, Trespassers will die. Chapter 274. This line of bright red characters demonstrated the overbearing and extraordinary spirit of Medicine King's Valley. Only people from Medicine King's Valley would dare to erect such a majestic stone monument in front of their own home. There was no one guarding the foot of the mountain, so Qin Zhe led the group up the mountain. Dong Qingyan and Qin Zhe walked side by side, followed by the 3 Medicine King's Valley disciples, with Yang Kai bringing up the rear. When the 3 young Medicine King's Valley disciples looked at Dong Qingyan, their faces were filled with envy, worship, and even love. On the other hand, when they looked at Yang Kai, they were still disdainful, not even bothering to say a word to him. Alchemists were a group of people who were not good at communicating with others and had eyes above their heads. The alchemists of Medicine King's Valley were even more so. Dong Qingyan's background was extraordinary and her natural beauty naturally attracted their attention. Although Yang Kai had also passed the test set by Grandmaster Xiao and was qualified to enter Hidden Cloud Peak, in essence, he was just a small attendant with a low status. How could they lower themselves to interact with him? Since they didn't speak, Yang Kai was like a taciturn gourd, secretly observing as they walked. On the other hand, Dong Qingyan was like a sparrow. From the moment she set foot on the rugged mountain road, she had been constantly asking questions. She was about to enter the Holy Land in her heart and see the senior she worshipped, so Dong Qingyan was both nervous and looking forward to it. Qin Zhe didn't speak much, most of the time he was silent, but when faced with Dong Qingyan's questions, he carefully answered one by one, not showing the slightest impatience. Listening to the conversation between the two of them, Yang Kai also learned a few things. Hidden Cloud Peak had only had one alchemist, Xiao Fu Sheng, since several decades ago. Besides the 2 maidservants who served him, there was no one else. Moreover, these 2 maidservants were ordinary people who had never cultivated before. Xiao Fu Sheng had been obsessed with alchemy all his life and had never accepted a disciple until this year when he changed his mind and decided to pass on his life's knowledge. That was why today's test had occurred. Why did Master suddenly change his mind? Dong Qingyan asked curiously. Qin Zhe's expression darkened, but he didn't answer. After a moment of hesitation, he said, "Martial Uncle's thoughts, I dare not speculate. You should ask him yourself one day." Oh. The first half of Hidden Cloud Peak was nothing out of the ordinary. As far as the eye could see, there were only rugged rocks and forests. From time to time, there would be some wild animals roaming about. However, they were all small animals such as rabbits and roe deer. There was nothing dangerous about them. But in the second half, instead, it was the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. It made people feel relaxed and happy. There were many exotic flowers and herbs in the mountains. Just like that, they grew there openly, swaying in the wind. There were many types of them. It was a dazzling sight. There are so many herbs here, why didn't anyone secretly come up here to pick them? Dong Qingyan couldn't help feeling curious when she saw no one guarding the mountain forest. Who dares? Qin Zhe coldly snorted. Whoever dares touch Medicine King's Valley's herbs will have their entire family annihilated. Hearing these murderous words, Dong Qingyan quickly spat out her tongue. The herbs that were planted in the mountains were definitely not too valuable, so it was not worthwhile to offend Medicine King Valley for these things. An hour later, the group arrived at the top of the mountain where there was a row of houses. There weren't many of them, only about 7 or 8, most of which were newly built. These should be the residences that Xiao Fusheng had prepared for his disciples. Arriving here, Qin Zhe stopped and turned to the 3 Medicine King's Valley disciples and said, "You wait here." The 3 of them listened. Quickly putting on a bashful face, they smiled and said, "Martial Uncle, we also want to go in." "What are you going to do?" Qin Zhe asked unhappily. One of them wore a look of yearning. "Since we entered Medicine King's Valley until now, we've only seen Martial Uncle Xiao once, but now we're here, heh." Qin Zhe frowned and pondered for a moment. Nodding, he said, "Good, then don't speak. Martial Uncle doesn't like to be disturbed." "Yes, we promise we won't speak." The 3 immediately cheered up. Yang Kai observed from the side and found that these 3 people's expressions were filled with awe. Even Qin Zhe's expression became serious. It seemed that Xiao Fusheng's reputation in the hearts of alchemists was far beyond what he had imagined. Even these disciples of Medicine King's Valley were proud to see him. Under the leadership of Qin Zhe, the group of people walked straight towards the row of houses. Before they had even arrived, 2 beautiful women appeared in front of them. These 2 beautiful women were both plump and gorgeous, with a hint of charm between their brows, a faint dignified air, and a light smile. At first glance, these 2 beautiful women appeared to be only 25 or 26 years old. In fact, both of them were over 40 years old. Because as early as 25 years ago, they had come to Hidden Cloud Peak to serve Xiao Fusheng. 25 years ago, they were only 16 or 17 years old. These 2 beautiful women were ordinary people who had never cultivated, but they were still able to maintain their youth and beauty. Compared to many other cultivators, they were even able to maintain their looks. All of this was thanks to Xiao Fusheng's methods. Seeing the 2 beautiful women come over, Qin Zhe quickly cupped his fists, not daring to show the slightest disrespect, respectfully saying, "Ladies, please report to Martial Uncle that we have brought the people he wants." These 2? One of the beautiful women wearing a moon-white dress looked at Dong Qingyan and Yang Kai with a smile. "Greetings, senior." Dong Qingyan also understood etiquette and quickly bowed with Yang Kai. The beautiful woman chuckled, "Call me Aunt Xiang, this is Aunt Lan." Dong Qingyan giggled and obediently bowed again. Aunt Xiang then said, "You don't need to be so formal here, just treat this place as your own home. In the future, the 2 of you will be living here for a long time. If you are too formal, you will feel uncomfortable, and we will also feel uncomfortable." The other beautiful woman, Aunt Lan, smiled and said, "When we first came to Hidden Cloud Peak, we were about the same age as you. In a flash, more than 20 years have passed." Dong Qingyan saw the 2 of them acting so cordially and her tension gradually relaxed. "Ladies, Martial Uncle is?" Qin Zhe waited for them to finish their small talk before respectfully asking for instructions. "Grandmaster is currently performing alchemy. News from the bottom of the mountain has already been sent back. You can go back first. When Grandmaster finishes refining that furnace of pills, he will meet with them." Hearing this, not only did the 3 young Medicine King's Valley disciples look sad, even Qin Zhe was slightly disappointed. "Many thanks." Qin Zhe quickly adjusted his expression, cupped his fists, and led the 3 Medicine King's Valley disciples away. After they left, the 2 beautiful women waved to Yang Kai and Dong Qinyen, smiling as they arranged a place for them to live. Hidden Cloud Peak had only been inhabited by the 3 of them and Xiao Fusheng. Xiao Fusheng would often retreat to perform alchemy and would not appear for more than 10 days. The 2 of them had been companions for so many years, so now that Yang Kai and Dong Qinyen had arrived, they were naturally happy. Hidden Cloud Peak was not like any of the other peaks. There was nothing to pay attention to, nor were there so many restrictions. Everything was very free. After arranging a place for Yang Kai and Dong Qinyen to live, the 2 women left. They stayed on Hidden Cloud Peak for 3 days, but Xiao Fusheng still did not show up. Only the 2 beautiful women came to see Yang Kai and Dong Qinyen from time to time, inquiring about their well-being. 3 days later, just as Dong Qinyen was muttering to herself about when Xiao Fusheng would come out, a tyrannical energy fluctuation suddenly spread out from nearby. Yang Kai's expression changed slightly, exchanging a glance with Dong Qinyen before quickly rushing out of the house. The 2 beautiful women had also walked out and were staring at a room in a daze. This was Xiao Fusheng's residence. Not long after, the door opened, and an old man in his 60s with white hair and beard walked out. The old man had a peaceful face, but at this moment, his eyebrows were tightly knitted. He was holding a golden pill in his hand, and while walking, he frowned and observed it. Dong Qinyen suddenly became nervous. The man she had always worshipped had appeared in front of her. Her mood could be imagined. Yang Kai was also looking at this legendary figure in the alchemy world and was surprised to find that this person didn't have the slightest fluctuation of yuan qi. He was like an ordinary old man, bland and plain. However, Xiao Fusheng was not an ordinary person. He was at least an immortal ascension boundary master. Yang Kai couldn't help but become solemn. Being able to restrain his aura to such an extent, this Xiao Fusheng was not simple. No pill veins, no pill veins. Without pill veins, what use is there for me? Xiao Fusheng muttered a few times with a pained expression before letting out a long sigh. Yang Kai glanced over at the pill in his hand and found that this pill was full of world energy. Even from a few dozen meters away, he could smell its pill fragrance. On top of that, it was round and full, clearly a heaven grade or above pill. But now, this pill had been degraded by Xiao Fusheng to be worthless. "Grandmaster." Auntie Xiang, one of the 2 beautiful women, called out softly, "He's here." "HM?" Only now did Xiao Fusheng recover from his contemplation, tossing the pill he had been holding to one of the beautiful women before turning his eyes towards Yang Kai and Dong Qinyen with great interest. "And not bad, not bad." Circling around Dong Qinyen a few times, Xiao Fusheng repeatedly praised. At this time, Dong Qinyan's small face suddenly became serious, not daring to move at all. After circling around Yang Kai a few more times, Xiao Fusheng suddenly frowned. "Not bad, but the murderous aura is too heavy." Yang Kai's heart went cold. Xiao Fusheng, on the other hand, casually said, "You too, stretch out your hands." Yang Kai and Dong Qinyen both stretched out their hands. Xiao Fusheng flicked his finger and placed it on their wrists. After examining them for a long time, his old face filled with a smile and his eyes flashed slightly as he stared at Yang Kai meaningfully. "You cheated during the test." Yang Kai was stunned for a moment before immediately letting out a laugh. Senior's eyes are sharp. Dong Qinyen was stunned on the spot and quickly defended Yang Kai. "He didn't cheat. He took that poison pill and forced the poison out of his body. How could he cheat?" Xiao Fusheng smiled and said, "I'm not saying that his aptitude isn't good. On the contrary, his aptitude is probably better than yours. It's just that he deliberately delayed forcing out the poison. Obviously he didn't want to show off too much." Dong Qinyen was stunned. The 2 beautiful women's beautiful eyes also flashed a strange light as they stared at Yang Kai in amazement. Yang Kai smiled bitterly. How did Senior see through it? Xiao Fusheng chuckled and patted the dust off his clothes. I set this test myself, how could I not know? Chapter 275. After Xiao Fusheng's simple explanation, Yang Kai finally understood what was hidden in his poison pills. The pot of poison pills was not complicated to refine, and the materials required were not expensive, otherwise there would not have been so many of them. However, the biggest function of these poison pills was to test the purity of a person's yuan qi. An alchemist was also a cultivator, and all of them had yuan qi in their bodies, but this group of people regarded alchemy as their main occupation. Increasing their cultivation and strength was all for the sake of alchemy. When a poison pill was taken, if one's yuan qi was pure enough, it could completely expel the poison from the body, otherwise, it would not work. The purity of yuan qi was related to many things, such as a cultivator's secret art, martial skills, the pills they had taken, their physique, and various other factors could all affect it. Although these alchemists regarded alchemy as their life's occupation, because of various experiences, their yuan qi was impure, so they failed Xiao Fusheng's test. Yang Kai had only practiced the true Yang secret art since he began cultivating, and had constantly tempered his yuan qi, so it was not surprising that the purity of his yuan qi could meet Xiao Fusheng's requirements. Dong Qingyan's situation was similar. She cultivated a fire attribute secret art. The Dong family was a big family, and when she was at the peak of the separation and reunion boundary, in order to help her break through to the yuan qi boundary, the family had spent a lot of precious treasures to help her condense her yuan qi, so naturally her yuan qi would not be impure. Xiao Fusheng smiled wryly. In fact, this old master's pot of poison pills, if an alchemist were to take them, 90% of them would fail the test. Because they don't take the purity of their yuan qi too seriously. When refining pills, many alchemists have to personally test the properties of the pills themselves. The various medicinal efficacies in their bodies would clash and condense, so how could there be any pure yuan qi? But if it were to be taken by those who cultivate a fire or yang attribute secret art, I'm afraid it would be a different story. Yang Kai suddenly realized why the time it took him to resolve the poison was shorter than Dong Qingyan's, so there was such a reason. However, of those who came to participate in Xiao Fusheng's test, which one of them was not an alchemist? Only a cultivator with a special purpose like Yang Kai would try it. Wanting to find such a successor among the alchemists was indeed somewhat difficult. Dong Qingyan being able to pass this test smoothly was also thanks to the Dong family not supporting her in alchemy all these years. If she had started studying alchemy from an early age, this test would likely have ended with regret. Many people have taken the wrong path as an alchemist. This old master was wrong. Xiao Fusheng let out a long sigh. There was an indescribable sense of loneliness and regret. Yang Kai frowned and said thoughtfully, "Master, according to what you said, wouldn't it be better to find a child with excellent aptitude and train him from a young age?" A child? Xiao Fusheng shook his head and smiled bitterly. This old master can't wait that long. Yang Kai's heart stirred, staring at Xiao Fusheng in surprise. The two beautiful women were also dejected. They wanted to say something but hesitated. Seeing this, Dong Qingyan couldn't help but gasp. "Grandmaster, Xiao Fusheng chuckled. With an indifferent expression, he said, "It doesn't matter, I can still live for a few more years. In this lifetime, I'm afraid I won't be able to break through to the mysterious grade top rank. I really want to see what the spirit rank is like." His words were full of yearning and regret. His expression suddenly brightened and he said, "I can't, but I want to train a spirit grade alchemist. Breaking through the shackles of the spirit rank will depend on the two of you." It was for this reason that Xiao Fusheng wanted to accept a disciple. He had devoted his entire life to alchemy, but had never been able to break through to the spirit rank. How could he not regret it? He had unparalleled alchemy knowledge and his own personal experience on the alchemy path, so he firmly believed that he could cultivate a disciple who surpassed himself. Perceiving Xiao Fusheng's determination, Yang Kai struggled for a moment before quickly saying, "Senior, please forgive this junior. The reason why I came to Hidden Cloud Peak was not to study alchemy." Xiao Fusheng's brow furrowed as he stared at Yang Kai in surprise. I want to reach the peak of the martial Tao. If I study alchemy, I'm afraid I won't be able to. Yang Kai said sincerely. He had come to Hidden Cloud Peak this time just to take advantage of its geographical advantage to get close to the Pale Saints Peak. Xiao Fu Xing had confided in him, so Yang Kai didn't want to deceive him too much. He definitely couldn't say that he wanted to go to the Pale Saints Peak, but he also couldn't learn alchemy, otherwise he would be unable to escape. Hearing Yang Kai say this, the two beautiful women suddenly frowned and looked towards Yang Kai with a slightly unhappy expression. On the other hand, Xiao Fu Xing just chuckled. Who said that alchemy can't help one reach the peak of the martial Tao? Yang Kai's expression shook as he thought about it. The first time he had met Xiao Fu Xing, this old man had left a deep impression on Yang Kai. Although he was already half buried in the ground, the kind of high-spirited spirit he displayed and the kind of mentality he had to compete with the heavens was something that many young people didn't possess. The Grandmaster didn't ask him to become Dong Qinyan's disciple and instead just stayed here. A few days later, Xiao Fu Xing didn't show up much. Dong Qinyan insisted on calling him master and disciple, while Yang Kai only called him Old Xiao. Although the two beautiful women were somewhat displeased with Yang Kai's attitude and tone that day, their self-restraint was excellent and they didn't embarrass him. Every day they still greeted him with a smile and took care of the daily life of the entire Hidden Cloud Peak, silently contributing. On this day, Xiao Fu Xing called Yang Kai and Dong Qinyan into his room. The two of them stood in front of Old Xiao, Yang Kai's expression indifferent while Dong Qinyan was somewhat restrained. Xiao Fu Xing smiled faintly and nodded. I haven't taught you anything these past few days, but I've been observing your character. Although time will reveal a person's heart, this old master has lived for many years, so his eyesight is still somewhat profound. Yen, you have a kind heart and come from a great family, but you don't have the spoiled temperament of those young ladies. Even if you inherit this old master's mantle, I believe you won't do anything evil in the future. If you are willing, this old master can accept you as a disciple. Disciple is willing. Dong Qinyan quickly replied, her face filled with joy. Xiao Fu Xing nodded with satisfaction and then turned to Yang Kai. You are different. Although you are young, you have experienced many hardships and your temperament is much more mature than your peers. Your yuan qi is like a sword, sharp and fierce, so you should have killed many people. But although your methods are ruthless, you will not kill the innocent. Yang Kai nodded silently and did not refute this. As one grew older, their eyesight was generally quite sharp. Your pursuit is different from Yenner's, so even if your aptitude is better than Yenner's, I will not force you. You have your own path to walk, so I will not accept you as a disciple, nor will I teach you alchemy. Master! Dong Qinyan exclaimed, thinking he was going to drive her away. Xiao Fu Xing waved his hand and smiled, but, since you have passed this old master's test, it can be considered fate, so I can teach you something else. For the time being, you and Yen, you can live together on Hidden Cloud Peak. Many thanks, old man Xiao. Yang Kai couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. If Xiao Fu Xing really wanted to drive him away from the mountain, he would have no choice. But now hearing him say he could stay on Hidden Cloud Peak, he naturally relaxed. With this, he no longer had any psychological burden to bear. This is a set of secret arts. The two of you can take them to cultivate, but remember, you only need to cultivate for an hour a day at most. Xiao Fu Xing handed over a booklet and closed his eyes. Yang Kai reached out and took the booklet before leaving the house with Dong Qinyan. Half a day later, the two of them had familiarized themselves with the secret arts on the booklet and returned to their respective rooms to cultivate. Yang Kai didn't know what kind of secret art this was as it didn't have a name and its circulation route was quite strange. It actually required one to circulate all 108 meridians in the body at the same time, a staggering number. Yang Kai and the old demon studied this secret art together for a long time, but even with the old demon's profound knowledge, he still couldn't figure out what it was, only that it didn't cause any harm. Xiao Fu Xing didn't have much time left, and now that he had finally accepted Dong Qinyan as his disciple, he naturally wouldn't harm her. Thinking so, Yang Kai sat cross-legged on his bed, adjusted his breathing, and began to cultivate this unknown secret art. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, A month had passed. During this month, Kai Yang was able to enjoy a rare moment of leisure. Every morning, he would wake up early in the morning and face the rising sun to practice his unyielding golden skeleton secret art. Then, he would spend an hour practicing an unknown secret art. After this, it was time for him to cultivate. The days passed quickly, and they were very fulfilling. Yang Kai repeatedly went to inquire about the situation of the Pill Saint's Peak, but without a proper reason or excuse, he would often be driven away before he could even approach, leaving him at a loss for what to do. The two beautiful women on Hidden Cloud Peak also treated Yang Kai very well. Every day they would cook some medicinal cuisine for him and Dong Qingyan to eat. The two women's cooking skills were very high, using only simple ingredients to create exquisite food. Dong Qingyan's feelings with the two beautiful women also greatly increased during this time. After all, they were all women, so it was much easier for them to interact with one another. After a month of hard work, Yang Kai's own strength didn't increase much, and the unknown secret art didn't increase his yuan qi, so it didn't have any magical effects. However, as old Xiao had said, this secret art could only be cultivated for an hour a day. Any longer and Yang Kai's yuan qi would begin to boil like boiling water, causing him unbearable pain. One day after a month, after Yang Kai and Dong Qingyan finished their breakfast, the two beautiful women smiled and handed over 2 medicine baskets. "Auntie Xiang, what are these for?" Dong Qingyan took the medicine baskets with a puzzled expression and handed one to Yang Kai. Auntie Xiang smiled and said, "Grandmaster has a task for the two of you." "Really?" Dong Qingyan was very happy. During this time, she had only been cultivating, and Xiao Fu Sheng hadn't taught her a single thing about alchemy, which made her quite depressed. She had joined Hidden Cloud Peak in order to learn alchemy, but until now she hadn't even seen the shadow of a pill, so how could she not be anxious? Now that she heard that her grandmaster had a task for her, naturally she couldn't wait to perform well in order to win the favor of her grandmaster, then take the opportunity to put forward her own requirements for learning alchemy. "What task?" Yang Kai asked faintly. "Grandmaster has asked you to collect some herbs." Auntie Xiang smiled and listed the names of the herbs she was going to collect, then explained in detail the habits and shapes of these herbs. Yang Kai and Dong Qingyan both secretly remembered this and set off with their medicine baskets. Chapter 276. Medicine King's Valley's Hidden Cloud Peak. Halfway up the mountain, Yang Kai and Dong Qingyan were carrying medicine baskets as they searched for herbs in the jungle. The task old Xiao had given them this time wasn't difficult to complete. The herbs they were looking for weren't precious, nor were they rare. They could all be found on this mountain peak. The only problem was that the age requirement was a bit harsh. They needed to be at least 30 years old or above. The two of them trekked through the mountains and rivers, carefully searching for herbs until late afternoon, before finally collecting most of them. "We're still missing an iron bone grass. Auntie Xiang said we need 10 stalks of it." Dong Qingyan counted with her fingers, her brow wrinkling slightly. "Cousin, we haven't found a single one yet." Yang Kai looked around and suddenly thought of something. "I'm afraid Hidden Cloud Peak doesn't have this kind of herb. Let's go somewhere else." Dong Qingyan's eyes darted around for a moment before she giggled. "You mean somewhere like Pill Saint's Peak?" Yang Kai glared at her. Dong Qingyan tacitly agreed, and together with Yang Kai, the two of them headed towards Pill Saint's Peak. Pill Saint's Peak was a restricted area of Medicine King's Valley. From the top of the mountain, ordinary disciples were not allowed to approach it. But below 3,000 feet, one could freely enter and exit. With a clear goal in mind, the two of them walked all the way to Pill Saint's Peak. "Let's split up and search." Yang Kai lightly coughed. Dong Qingyan smiled and nodded. She naturally knew what Yang Kai wanted to do, but she didn't point it out, instead just saying, "Be careful." "I know." Carrying the medicine basket on his back, Yang Kai casually approached the top of Pill Saint's Peak, casually searching for iron bone grasses while secretly remaining vigilant of his surroundings. Half an hour later, as Yang Kai intentionally or unintentionally approached, he was now only 1,000 feet away from the peak. Quietly looking up, Yang Kai suddenly found a stone statue standing on top of Pill Saint's Peak. This stone statue was the Pill Saint's portrait. The stone statue was at least 300 feet tall and had a magnificent aura. Yang Kai was still able to see the statue's chest from 1,000 feet away. The stone statue was modeled. It was unknown how many years the flowing time great emperor had stood here. Wind and rain battered it, but it still stood firm. Yang Kai wanted to release his divine sense to investigate, but he was somewhat afraid. Although he couldn't see anyone, there was definitely an expert guarding the place. "Old demon, can you sneak in and take a look?" Yang Kai asked. "If there is an immortal ascension boundary master up there, old servant has nowhere to hide," the old demon replied. His current strength wasn't too high, so he couldn't hide his demonic chi. Furthermore, his characteristics were too obvious. He was wrapped in a black aura with the soul breaker all. There was no way to hide from an immortal ascension boundary master. Was there no way at all? It had been more than a month since they arrived at Hidden Cloud Peak. He hadn't even figured out what was hidden there. "Who's there?" Just as Yang Kai was frowning, an angry shout came from above. A figure flew down from above and landed directly in front of Yang Kai. He looked at him coldly. This person was definitely an immortal ascension boundary master, and his strength wasn't low. Although most of the disciples in Medicine King's Valley were alchemists, there were always some who were responsible for combat and defense. "Which peak are you from? Don't you know that 3,000 meters below Pill Saint's Peak is a restricted area?" The man coldly shouted. His expression was unfriendly. Yang Kai frowned, his mind racing. "I'm asking you a question. Who is your master? Didn't he tell you the consequences of trespassing on Pill Saint's Peak?" Yang Kai cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, senior. This junior is a disciple of Hidden Cloud Peak's Old Man Xiao. Under Old Man Xiao's orders, this junior came down the mountain today to collect some herbs." "Grandmaster Xiao?" The man was stunned for a moment before suddenly realizing, "You're the young man who joined Hidden Cloud Peak a month ago." "It is indeed this junior." The man vigilantly and cautiously looked Yang Kai up and down, sending out his divine sense but retracting it a moment later. The cold expression on his face gradually eased. Yang Kai then said, "This junior was only focused on finding herbs. I didn't expect to find myself here. Please forgive me, senior." The man nodded and said, "If it were any other disciple, today's death sentence could be spared, but punishment would still be unavoidable. But since you've only been here for a short time, today's mistake can be forgiven. Leave quickly, and don't commit such a crime again. If you do, you will be severely punished." Yang Kai helplessly withdrew. After Yang Kai left, the man's figure flickered and returned to the top of Pill Saint's Peak, continuing to watch over it. From a distance, Yang Kai glanced back again. Sure enough, there was an immortal ascension boundary master guarding that place. What should he do? If there was a way to get close to the myriad drug pond, he might have been able to get a glimpse of its mysteries, but now he couldn't even get close, let alone anything else. Walking back with a gloomy expression, Yang Kai could hear Dong Qingyan arguing with someone from afar, so he couldn't help quickening his pace. A moment later, a clear voice entered his ears. "This iron bone grass was obviously found by me first. How can you be like this?" Dong Qingyan's tone was somewhat aggrieved. Another voice called out, "Junior sister must be joking. This herb is the shared property of my Medicine King's Valley. Naturally it belongs to whoever picks it first. What's more, according to what junior sister said, we were the first to discover all the herbs in this mountain. We've lived here since we were young." "Who's your junior sister?" Dong Qingyan angrily said, "I am Grandmaster Zhao's disciple. According to seniority, all of you should call me Martial Ant." Ahem ahem. The three young Medicine King's Valley disciples who were confronting Dong Qingyan couldn't help feeling embarrassed, unable to refute. Xiao Fu Sheng had accepted a disciple in his later years, so although Dong Qingyan was very young, her seniority in Medicine King's Valley was much higher than the average person, the same generation as Qin Zhe, so naturally these young men were lower than her. What's wrong? Do several martial nephews want to snatch what Martial Ant wants, HM? Dong Qingyan proudly snorted. What Martial Ant? The leader muttered discontentedly, I was lucky enough to be able to worship Martial Uncle Xiao as my master. If Martial Uncle Xiao was willing to let me try that poison pill, I could have also passed the test. Dong Qingyan wrinkled her delicate nose. It's useless to say such things now. Obediently hand over the herbs your martial aunt has taken a fancy to, otherwise, I'll go tell your master, and say you offended your superiors, disrespecting your elders. As she finished speaking, her voice suddenly became louder. The faces of the several young Medicine King's Valley disciples all changed. This big accusation was something they couldn't bear. Inside Medicine King's Valley, only Hidden Cloud Peak's rules were a bit lax. In other words, only Hidden Cloud Peak had no rules and was completely free. Unlike the other peaks, where there were many rules and regulations, it was not a joke to offend one's superiors and disrespect their elders. However, these young men were all older than Dong Qingyan, and they were all men. How could they be willing to admit defeat in front of this little girl? The leader of the group thought for a moment. He quickly came up with a plan. Grinning meaningfully, he ground his teeth and said, "Since Martial Ant is a disciple of Hidden Cloud Peak, you must be an alchemy genius." "Naturally," Dong Qingyan said proudly. This little girl was also obsessed with alchemy. Instead of praising her for her beauty, it was better to praise her for her exquisite alchemy skills. As soon as she heard this, she immediately became arrogant. "Martial Ant is looking for iron bone grass?" The man asked again. "There isn't much iron bone grass left in Medicine King's Valley right now. How much iron bone grass does Martial Ant need?" 10. I only found 2. That's really a coincidence. We also have a lot of iron bone grass here. It should be enough for Martial Ant's needs. "You're willing to give it to me?" Dong Qingyan smiled happily, suddenly feeling that her martial nephews were quite handsome. The man chuckled. "Naturally, it's impossible to give it away for free, but Martial Nephew wants to use these iron bone grasses as a bet and compare notes with Martial Ant. If Martial Ant can win, not only will we offer these iron bone grasses, but if Martial Ant takes a fancy to the other herbs, then we will give them to Martial Ant. Martial Ant is free to take them. What does Martial Ant think?" Hearing this, Dong Qingyan wrinkled her brow and pursed her lips. Just as she was wondering what to do, Yang Kai's voice suddenly called out, "Who wants to compare notes? I'll accompany you." "Guard Yang." Dong Qingyan smiled happily and waved towards Yang Kai. Yang Kai's figure flickered and arrived in front of Dong Qingyan, faintly looking at the 3 Medicine King's Valley disciples in front of him. "You want to compare notes?" "It's him. He's the other disciple who passed the test and joined Hidden Cloud Peak." One of the Medicine King's Valley disciples grit his teeth and said, his face filled with envy and jealousy, wishing he could take his place. "Bullying a woman isn't a skill. If you have something to say, then come at me." Yang Kai glanced over at the 3. Yang Kai's arrogance, immediately arousing the competitive spirit of the 3 Medicine King's Valley disciples, the leader of the group said, "Good. Since you have such intentions, I'll let you see my skills." "Wait a minute." Yang Kai raised his hand. "You just said that iron bone grass would be the stake. Does that still count?" "Of course." "Good." Yang Kai nodded. "You 3 come at me together." The 3 Medicine King's Valley disciples couldn't help glancing at each other. "Please enlighten us." Before Yang Kai's voice had even fallen, he had already stepped forward. The 3 Medicine King's Valley alchemists only saw an afterimage fly towards them, and with a few loud bangs, the 3 Medicine King's Valley alchemists were all thrown off their feet, all of them screaming miserably. "So weak?" Yang Kai frowned, a look of suspicion filling his face. He had thought that since these people were so arrogant, they would certainly have some skill, but he hadn't expected that they wouldn't even be able to withstand a single blow from him. Those attacks just now were just probing attacks. He had only used 50% of his full strength. "You? How could you hit us?" The alchemist who had just spoken fell to the ground, trembling as he pointed at Yang Kai, his face filled with resentment and sadness. "Nonsense." Yang Kai sneered. This was a competition. If not a fight, what else could he do? Without wasting any more words, Yang Kai stepped forward and rummaged through the 3 Medicine King's baskets, collecting all the iron bone grasses. "Guard Yang, let's hurry up and leave." Dong Qingyan's pretty face flushed red as she pulled Yang Kai towards Hidden Cloud Peak. You've gone too far. A cry of grievance and sadness came from behind. I'm going to tell Martial Uncle Xiao and have him punish you. Why are they acting like this? Yang Kai frowned. Didn't they want to exchange pointers? After losing, they're still clamoring, too weak. Cuckoo. Dong Qingyan's face became even redder. Why are we running? Those iron bone grasses were what they said they would use as a stake. It's only natural they won. We didn't rob them. Don't talk, you're embarrassing yourself. Chapter 277. It wasn't until they reached Hidden Cloud Peak that the two of them slowed down. Yang Kai looked at Dong Qingyan suspiciously, his face filled with confusion, not knowing why she was blushing. What's wrong? Yang Kai frowned and asked. Dong Qingyan glared at him for a moment before taking a deep breath and helplessly explaining. Cousin, when alchemists compare notes, it's a competition of alchemy skills. Everyone takes the same materials and then refine a pill. The number and quality of the pills they refine, as well as the time it takes to refine them, the winner is decided by the number and quality of the pills they refine, not like you. Saying so, she waved her small fists a few times. It's not like that. Yang Kai was stunned, his face couldn't help turning red as he awkwardly said, they didn't explain it clearly, how could I know? Dong Qingyan smiled bitterly, it's common sense. Fortunately, you didn't use too much force and didn't hurt them. If you had really injured them, the consequences would have been serious. Saying so, she patted her forehead and said weakly, sure enough, cultivators are a bunch of brutes who only know how to use their fists. Yang Kai was also extremely embarrassed, thinking to himself that no wonder those three had been so excited when they heard he agreed to a competition, as if they didn't know how to write the word death. It turned out they thought he was going to compete with them in alchemy. That beating was really a waste. Aware that he was in the wrong, Yang Kai remained silent on the way back, but Dong Qingyan couldn't help covering her mouth and laughing every time she recalled what had just happened. After returning to the top of the mountain, Yang Kai handed over the herbs he had collected today to the two beautiful women. After eating the medicinal cuisine they had prepared, Yang Kai and Dong Qingyan returned to their respective rooms to rest. The next day, Yang Kai hadn't yet left his house when he smelled a fragrant scent from outside, one that made him feel very comfortable. Curious, Yang Kai opened the door and walked out, following the scent to the outside of his room. Looking around, Yang Kai saw that in each of the two rooms not far away, there was a large steaming vat, each of which was filled with a variety of strange herbs. The two beautiful women were each responsible for one of the rooms, fanning the flames below, sweat dripping down their faces. What kind of pill is Master refining? Dong Qingyan also came out and looked around curiously, her two big eyes flashing with excitement. Yang Kai watched for a while, then walked up and asked, "Do you need our help?" Aunt Xiang stood up when she heard this and looked at them with a smile. He nodded and said, "Yes." Yang Kai rolled up his sleeves and said, "What should we do?" Aunt Xiang pursed her lips and smiled. "You don't need to do anything for now. These 2 cauldrons of medicinal decoctions are for the 2 of you. I boiled them all night long, so they will be ready soon. For us." Yang Kai was stunned. Aunt Lan nodded. "That's right. For the past month, old Xiao has been concocting all kinds of herbs. The herbs you collected yesterday are all inside." "I have a share too?" Yang Kai was a little touched. If it was said that old Xiao had worked hard to prepare something for Dong Qingyan, Yang Kai could naturally understand. After all, Dong Qingyan had worshipped him as her master and was his successor, but now he also had a share. Yang Kai was a little surprised. Aunt Xiang nodded lightly and said, "Naturally, since you have entered Hidden Cloud Peak, you are one of its people. The 2 of you go eat something first and prepare yourselves. Come back in an hour." Yang Kai opened his mouth, a touch of emotion flashing across his eyes. Breakfast had been prepared in the kitchen, and it was also steaming hot, so it should have just been finished not long ago. As she ate, she watched Auntie Xiang and Auntie Lan work in full swing. Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a faint warmth in his heart. He hadn't felt this way for a long time. After an hour, Yang Kai and Dong Qingyan each entered a room. Yang Kai's room was Aunt Xiang's responsibility, so under her instructions, Yang Kai took off his shirt and wore only a pair of thin trousers. Then he jumped into the medicinal soup. Yang Kai had always respected these two beautiful women on Hidden Cloud Peak. They had silently devoted themselves to Hidden Cloud Peak for more than 20 years. They had spent the best years of their lives, but the world only knew of Xiao Fu Sheng on Hidden Cloud Peak. No one had ever known that there were two unknown women here. Even Yang Kai, who had been on Hidden Cloud Peak for a month now and had been taken care of by these two women, only called them Aunt Xiang and Aunt Lan and didn't know their full names. So even though he was topless at the moment, his expression didn't seem the slightest bit unnatural. Aunt Xiang, what should I do now? Yang Kai felt the warmth around him and felt comfortable both physically and mentally, so he couldn't help asking. Circulate the secret art that old Xiao taught you. That secret art was prepared to absorb the medicinal efficacies of this medicinal soup. It has no other use. It's not easy to gather these herbs. Old Xiao also spent a lot of effort to gather all of them, and there are only 2 furnaces, so you have to be careful. Don't waste the medicinal efficacy and let down old Xiao's good intentions. I know. Yang Kai nodded solemnly, closed his eyes, and began circulating the secret art. As he circulated the secret art, Yang Kai felt hundreds of millions of pores on his body open up, the medicinal efficacies contained in the medicinal soup seemingly turning into sharp needles. They were everywhere, everywhere. Penetrating his pores, they pierced into his body. Unable to restrain himself, Yang Kai let out a groan, his body trembling slightly. On the other hand, Dong Qingyan next door let out a pitiful cry. Dong Qingyan was a woman after all, one who had been pampered since childhood. How could she bear this kind of pain? Aunt Lan's comforting voice came from next door. Aunt Xiang stared closely at Yang Kai's reaction, her beautiful eyes flashing a dignified light as she couldn't help feeling slightly moved. Old Xiao had said before that the effect of using this medicinal soup to cleanse the body was remarkable, but the pain was also inhumane. Before, she had been worried about whether Yang Kai and Dong Qingyan could bear it, but now it seemed that Yang Kai didn't have any problems at all. The pain seemed to be increasing little by little, and after a moment, not only did he feel pain all over his body, even his meridians and 5 viscera and 6 bowels were filled with pain. It was as if millions of ants were gnawing at his body. Large drops of sweat dripped from his forehead as Yang Kai's skin became as red as blood, but the secret art didn't stop, continuing to circulate. This kind of boundless pain lasted for a full 2 hours. Suddenly, this kind of pain lessened by a lot. As if it had reached a limit, this slowdown became more and more obvious, and a moment later, the pain all over his body disappeared. What replaced it was a hearty feeling. Yang Kai couldn't help but take a deep breath and slowly open his eyes, his pupils shining brightly. Aunt Xiang looked at Yang Kai with satisfaction, a smile on her face as she listened for a moment before saying, "Old Xiao underestimated the endurance of the 2 of you. It seems that the other side has also endured." As she spoke, she tossed the various herbs in her hand into the medicinal soup, then turned around and continued to fan the fire below. The magical secret art no longer needed to be deliberately circulated, and under the influence of the medicinal soup, it began to circulate on its own. With each cycle, Yang Kai could feel his physique becoming stronger, his meridians becoming wider and tougher, and the yuan qi in his body becoming more and more pure. "Aunt Xiang, I should have left this medicinal soup for young Lady Dong." Yang Kai felt a little uncomfortable. He had come to Hidden Cloud Peak for another purpose and had clearly stated that his ambition was not alchemy, but old Xiao still didn't treat him as an outsider. Aunt Xiang chuckled, "Old Xiao's medicinal soup is too overbearing. A person can only use it once in their life. If your young lady uses it a second time, her meridians won't be able to withstand it." After a pause, Aunt Xiang continued, "You don't need to feel burdened. Old Xiao is actually quite optimistic about you, but the path you pursue is different from that of an alchemist." "What is the effect of this medicinal soup?" Yang Kai asked curiously. Aunt Xiang pondered for a moment before patiently explaining, "According to old Xiao, it can improve a person's meridians, so when you cultivate in the future, it will be easier to temper your yuan qi and purify your yuan qi." This is related to alchemy? Yang Kai furrowed his brow, suddenly remembering the first time he had met old Xiao. The latter had said something to him. The path of an alchemist? Many people have taken the wrong path. This old master was also wrong. Yang Kai still remembered the loneliness and regret in old Zhao's words. Aunt Xiang nodded. Naturally, it's related. Old Xiao had only managed to comprehend it a few years ago, but it was too late for him to realize it. An alchemist is the same as a cultivator. They need pure yuan qi as a foundation in order to refine good pills. That's why he used such a test to select a disciple. Brushing her hair behind her ear, Aunt Xiang fell into contemplation for a moment before saying, Old Xiao once said that if he accepted a disciple, he would definitely teach them a certain principle. What principle? Alchemy cannot be performed until one reaches the immortal ascension boundary. Aunt Xiang smiled bitterly. Perhaps this is not the truth, nor is it necessarily correct. But this is old Zhao's alchemy insight. Alchemy cannot be performed until one reaches the immortal ascension boundary. No wonder he hadn't taught Dong Qingyan any alchemy skills until now. Instead, he had been quite concerned about her growth this past month. If you have the heart to learn alchemy, you are actually a talent that old Xiao desires. Aunt Xiang smiled bitterly. Before old Xiao trained an alchemist, he would first train an immortal ascension boundary cultivator, which required his disciple to have a certain level of pursuit of the martial Dao. Yang Kai's yearning for the martial Dao obviously met this condition. Old Xiao is too kind. Yang Kai shook his head lightly. Before his strength grew to a certain level, Yang Kai wasn't prepared to be distracted by other things. Alchemists were indeed respected by the world, but this was not Yang Kai's pursuit. Right? I heard that yesterday you beat up 3 of Cloud Gathering Peak's Elder Duan's disciples? Aunt Xiang changed the subject, fearing that Yang Kai would be too embarrassed. Yang Kai blushed and scratched his head, muttering, I didn't know they were talking about a competition of alchemy. Aunt Xiang pursed her lips and giggled, her shoulders trembling slightly as she took a moment to calm down. Now there are rumors going around that Hidden Cloud Peak has a new disciple whose alchemy skills aren't very good but who is very good at fighting. I didn't cause any trouble for old Xiao, did I? Yang Kai asked guiltily. Aunt Xiang shook her head. No, you didn't hurt them, it was just that someone came over this morning to inform you. But next time be careful, don't fight without reason. Of course. Yang Kai nodded repeatedly. What he had done was simply too improper. Every time he thought about it, it made him blush. Chapter 278. Throughout the day, Auntie Xiang busied herself in front of the fire, occasionally adding herbs to the medicinal soup. It wasn't until late in the evening that she came out, gasping for breath and sweating profusely. She told Yang Kai that he could come out after absorbing the medicinal efficacies before leaving the room to rest. Yang Kai soaked in the medicinal soup all night, absorbing every last drop of its medicinal efficacies. Returning to his room, Yang Kai closed his eyes and meditated, feeling the changes in his body. His cultivation had improved a little, and the yuan qi in his body had also become purer, but the most significant improvement was in his meridians and physique. Auntie Xiang had said during the day that the main effect of the medicinal soup was to fundamentally improve a person's meridians. It would make it easier to refine one's energy when cultivating in the future. It would make it easier to condense and purify one's energy. This kind of benefit was not obvious for the time being, but it was enough to affect a person's entire life. Trying to circulate his true yang secret art, Yang Kai was surprised to find that his true yang secret art circulation speed was faster than before, and the world energy he absorbed was indeed a little purer than before. This kind of change was very subtle, but as the saying goes, dripping water can penetrate stone, and sand can build a tower. After accumulating for a long time, the effect would definitely be extraordinary. A single medicinal soup and a set of mysterious secret arts were able to achieve this. Xiao Fu Sheng's methods were truly heaven-defying. Xiao Fu Sheng's combat effectiveness may not be ranked high in this world, but he was one of the few mysterious grade top-rank alchemists in the world, and his mastery of alchemy had reached the pinnacle. The various magical methods he had discovered while performing alchemy could be described as a great achievement. At dawn, Xiao Xing called Yang Kai and Dong Qinyan together. He did not teach them alchemy, but instead taught them a set of methods to control yuan qi. This had a lot to do with alchemy, because when an alchemist refined a pill, they needed to control their yuan qi to the point of perfection. There was a saying that a slight difference could lead to 1,000 miles of difference, and if one wanted to refine a good pill, a subtle yuan qi control was essential. This method of controlling yuan qi was also closely related to any cultivator, especially in battle. Yuan qi's control was closely related to the execution of martial arts techniques. Any expert would carefully calculate their yuan qi. If they could use one portion of yuan qi to release a martial skill, they would definitely not waste 1.5 portions. This kind of careful planning would allow yuan qi to exert the greatest effect and allow a cultivator to sustain the longest battle. So whether it was Yang Kai or Dong Qinyan, both of them studied seriously. This set of methods had been developed by Xiao Xing himself when he was practicing alchemy and could be said to be one of his most valuable experiences. All of them were bestowed upon him. After this teaching, several days passed. Learning from time to time, Yang Kai and Dong Qinyan were both familiar with the method. All that was left was to put it into practice. At this time, Yang Kai suddenly remembered something else Xiao Xing had said that day, who said that alchemy could not allow one to reach the peak of martial arts. When old Xiao said this, his face was brimming with confidence. Just this method of controlling yuan qi, if practiced to the extreme, it was possible to peek into the mysteries of the peak. Yang Kai was in awe. Every word old Xiao said had a deep meaning behind them. It was thought-provoking and could be said to be a gem. Over the next few days, Yang Kai and Dong Qinyan both practiced the subtle control of yuan qi. As time passed, Yang Kai found that this kind of practice not only allowed him to better control each portion of yuan qi, but also allowed his yuan qi to slowly fuse and purify. Yuan qi's second stage had faintly reached the peak, only a small step away from breaking through to the third stage. On this day, just as Yang Kai and Dong Qinyan were practicing their yuan qi control outside the house, they were surprised to find that the surrounding peaks were bustling with activity. Many people were walking back and forth on the rugged mountain roads of these peaks. Many of them were disciples of Medicine King's Valley, but there were also many outsiders. What's going on? Dong Qinyan stopped and looked around curiously. Why are there so many outsiders in Medicine King's Valley? Yang Kai shook his head, indicating that he did not know. The Alchemy Summit will begin in a few days. Auntie Xiang and Auntie Lan walked over and softly explained. Medicine King's Valley usually does not allow outsiders to enter. But after all, this place is inextricably linked to the world's great forces, so whenever this time comes, many people will come to visit the various elders. Yang Kai and Dong Qinyan suddenly realized that ever since they entered Hidden Cloud Peak until now, the two of them had lived a carefree life, rarely venturing out. The days passed very quickly, and neither of them noticed that the Alchemy Summit was about to begin. Auntie Xiang chuckled, all the peaks are very lively, except for the Forbidden Pill Saints Peak and our Hidden Cloud Peak. And our place is still the most peaceful. Auntie Lan also smiled. Dong Qinyan giggled. If Master opens the mountain gate, I guarantee that everyone will rush in like a flock of ducks. I'm afraid the peaks will soon become peaceful. Auntie Xiang glanced at her and said, then your Auntie Lan and I will be exhausted. With so many guests coming and going, how can we possibly keep up with all of them? After getting along with each other for some time, Auntie Xiang and Auntie Lan also became very fond of Dong Qinyan. The two beautiful women also had no children, so they only regarded Dong Qinyan as their own daughter and took great care of her. The little girl's mouth was also very sweet, and she did not despise them because they were just ordinary people or maidservants. As soon as Auntie Xiang's voice fell, Xiao Xing's door suddenly opened and a loud laugh rang out. It seems that my Hidden Cloud Peak will also be peaceful today. Master. Old Xiao. Yang Kai and Dong Qinyan quickly bowed, only to see Xiao Xing grinning from ear to ear as he walked out of his room with a majestic gait. Master, why are you so happy? Dong Qingyan stepped forward and asked softly. Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a prickle run down his arm. His little cousin was always mischievous in front of him, but in front of Xiao Fu Sheng, Auntie Xiang, and Auntie Lan, she was extremely well behaved. A friend has come from afar, of course I'm happy. Xiao Fu Sheng laughed. Dong Qingyan's eyes narrowed slightly. I thought Master didn't like people coming to visit, so that's not the case. Xiao Fu Sheng chuckled. That depends on who it is. Those who come to ask me for help naturally won't be welcome, but the one who is about to arrive is different. Ha! Old man Xiao, this time this old master came to ask you to do something. Are you also going to drive people away? With a burst of laughter, a figure quickly approached from the bottom of the mountain road. Hearing this voice, Yang Kai couldn't help but frown, his expression suddenly becoming strange. This voice, why does it sound like? When Auntie Xiang and Auntie Lan heard this visitor daring to call Old Man Xiao, they couldn't help feeling surprised. Obviously they didn't know who this visitor was. In this world, even if the patriarchs of the central capital's 8 great families came, they would still have to respectfully address him as Grandmaster Xiao. No one dared to call him Old Man Xiao so unscrupulously. But when Old Man Xiao heard this, not only did he not become annoyed, he instead joked, "How could this old master dare drive you away? This old master still owes you his life." After a few words, Auntie Xiang and Auntie Lan suddenly realized that this visitor was actually one of Old Man Xiao's saviors, their pretty faces immediately becoming solemn as they respectfully greeted him. The figure below suddenly flickered, and the person who had been a few thousand meters away suddenly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Moreover, it wasn't just one person but 2. The one in the lead was an old man about the same age as old Xiao. His face was full of wrinkles, but he had a sincere smile on his face. Following behind him was a pretty girl. This girl had a pair of beautiful eyes that were as bright and pure as the stars. She wore a light green dress, and her bright and clean forehead was adorned with a sky blue gem. With the gauze covering her face, it was impossible to see her face clearly. The wind blew, causing her veil and dress to flutter, making her look like an ethereal fairy, untainted by even a speck of dust and dirt. Yang Kai's expression shook, and a strange smile appeared on his face as he stared at this masked woman. The woman felt this aggressive and unscrupulous gaze and couldn't help but frown slightly as she glanced over at Yang Kai. Immediately, her star-like beautiful eyes flashed with a strong sense of surprise. Her fan-like eyelashes trembled slightly as she blinked her eyes in disbelief. 4 eyes met. Yang Kai smiled slightly while the woman's eyes also curved into crescents. This woman was none other than Xianing Chang, and the old man who had arrived first was actually Meng Wuya. "Brother Meng, long time no see." Old man Xiao stepped forward and cupped his fists. Meng Wuya smiled and hurriedly cupped his fists in return. "Xiao, ku. He only had time to spit out a single word before he suddenly felt as if his bones were stuck in his throat and he began coughing loudly, causing him to feel dizzy. "Master." Xianing Chang was startled and quickly patted Meng Wuya's back. "Is Brother Meng injured?" Xiao Fu Sheng's expression became dignified as he hurriedly stepped forward to check Meng Wuya's pulse. Meng Wuya quickly waved his hand and coughed for a long time before he finally managed to catch his breath. His expression was one of shock as he stared at Yang Kai, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "Smelly brat, why are you here? Damn. This is really a case of enemies meeting on a narrow road." More than a year ago, this little brat had been sent by Ling Tai Su to Nether Mountain for life experience and had not seen him for more than a year. Although at first his precious apprentice had been absent-minded and sighing all day long, with the passage of time and his earnest teachings, his precious apprentice had finally emerged from the shadow of lovesickness and her strength had become even more refined. Originally, Meng Wuya had thought that his apprentice must have forgotten about Yang Kai, but he had not expected to see him again in this broken place today. Looking at the deep emotions in his precious apprentice's eyes, how could Meng Wuya not know that she had never forgotten about Yang Kai and had simply suppressed her longing for him in the bottom of her heart? Perhaps, when no one was around, she would take out her memories and relive the pain of lovesickness. At this moment, Meng Wuya understood what it meant to say that love was like wine, the longer it was hidden, the more mellow it would be. At this moment, Meng Wuya wanted to turn around and leave, but it was obviously too late. At this moment, Meng Wuya wished he could slap his own mouth a dozen times. He had also noticed that Xia Ningchang had been somewhat depressed these days, and it just so happened that Medicine King's Valley was holding some kind of alchemy summit, so he had deliberately brought her out to relax. How could he have imagined that he would run into this little bastard here? Damn it, who told you to meddle? Who told you to meddle? Meng Wuya even had thoughts of hanging himself. Chapter 279. On Hidden Cloud Peak, Meng Wuya's face was filled with grief and indignation while Xia Ningchang was supporting her master, smiling lightly. Xiao Fuxing's expression became strange as he looked at Xia Ningchang and then at Yang Kai, a light of understanding flashing across his eyes. Auntie Xiang and Auntie Lan felt as if they had fallen into the clouds and were completely confused. Dong Qinyan quietly approached Yang Kai and poked him with her finger. Heh, don't stare at him like that, he's blushing. Do you know each other? Xiao Fuxing looked at the crowd with a smile. Yang Kai nodded slightly, smiled, and bowed in the manner of a disciple. Treasurer Meng, turning his head, he gently called out, "Little senior sister." Xia Ningchang's delicate earlobes blushed as she lowered her head slightly and softly replied, "Junior brother." Her voice trembled slightly, obviously her heart was not calm. Ahem ahem. Meng Wuya quickly coughed twice, interrupting the tender and sweet atmosphere, not even bothering to greet Yang Kai as he rolled his eyes. "Old man Xiao, you're a guest from afar. Are you really going to block this old master's way?" Xiao Fuxing laughed. "Brother Meng, please come inside and talk." Although he was full of doubts, Xiao Fuxing was a wise old man. How could he not see that Meng Wuya's apprentice had some feelings for Yang Kai? When they first met, this little girl was only about 12 years old and Meng Wuya had treated her like a treasure. Now that this young girl was experiencing her first awakening of love, Meng Wuya was probably worried about this. This was understandable. Such a beautiful and pure little girl, if she worshipped him as her master, he would definitely be worried that she would misjudge him and suffer a loss. Meng Wuya and Xiao Fuxing walked together while Xia Ningchang nodded lightly to Yang Kai and followed closely behind. Gently, Meng Wuya's voice drifted over with the wind. "Disciple, look at this little bastard, he's really romantic. Wherever he goes, there are beauties accompanying him. He's a complete pervert, you need to open your eyes carefully." Xia Ningchang nodded meekly. "This old man?" Dong Qinyan suddenly pursed her lips, a look of dissatisfaction. Auntie Xiang and Auntie Lan chuckled. She glanced at Yang Kai in surprise and then followed him to pour tea for him. "Cousin, who is that?" After everyone entered the house, Dong Qinyan asked curiously. "A senior sister of High Heaven Pavilion." Yang Kai lightly replied. "Just a simple senior sister?" Dong Qinyan grinned meaningfully. Yang Kai rolled his eyes at her and walked back to his room. Dong Qinyan stood in place, lightly tapping her red lips, her eyes darting back and forth for a moment before muttering, "Oomph, you really think I can't see through you? I'm not a child." He thought for a moment. Suddenly, he began to chuckle nonstop. Meng Wuya and Xia Ningchang coming to Medicine King's Valley was beyond Yang Kai's expectations. Although the alchemy summit was just around the corner, and Yang Kai had thought that someone from High Heaven Pavilion would come to participate, his little senior sister's physique was special. Her alchemy skills were not something the younger generation of alchemists could compare to, so if she participated, there would be no need to hold this alchemy summit. First place would definitely be hers. A moment later, there was a knock on the door. Yang Kai smiled slightly, stood up and opened the door, only to see Xia Ningchang standing there. "Junior brother." Xia Ningchang's starry eyes flashed with the joy and happiness of reuniting after such a long time as she softly called out, "Come in first." Yang Kai stepped aside. Xia Ningchang nodded gently and walked in, bringing with her a fragrant scent. Yang Kai closed the door behind her. "Why are you here?" Yang Kai asked as he poured a glass of water and handed it over. Master said that there was the best alchemist in the world here and told me to ask for some advice. Xianing Chang sat there quietly. After not seeing each other for more than a year, at this moment she was obviously a little nervous, but more than that she was happy. Old Xiao is indeed the best alchemist in the world, Yang Kai nodded lightly. Junior brother, why are you here? Xianing Chang looked up and asked, didn't you go to Nether Mountain? It's a long story. Yang Kai smiled bitterly and didn't go into detail, simply saying, I came here to do something. What is it? Can I be of any help? Yang Kai didn't want to hide it from her, but there was an ethereal divine sense floating around the room, so he didn't need to think to know that it was Meng Wuya monitoring them. Yang Kai grinned meaningfully and beckoned to Xianing Chang, moving his mouth closer to hers. Quietly moving closer to her ear. Xianing Chang's heart trembled and her body suddenly tensed up. Her pretty face blushed and she didn't dare to move, even holding her breath. Yang Kai ignored her and still moved closer to her delicate red ear and whispered, I'm going to Pill Saint's Peak to see the myriad drug pond. Oh. Xianing Chang responded unconsciously, her 10 fingers gripping the teacup tightly, not even hearing what Yang Kai was saying. Cuckoo. Meng Wuya's violent coughs came from a nearby room. Brother Meng. Opposite Meng Wuya, Xiao Fu Sheng looked at him helplessly, not knowing whether to laugh or cry as he tried to persuade him, some things are best left to their own devices. Yes. Meng Wuya looked embarrassed and nodded repeatedly, taking back his divine sense with a red face. Although he cared about his apprentice, he couldn't always spy on her all the time. But when he thought about how just a few dozen meters away, his precious apprentice was alone in a room with that little bastard boy, the two of them so intimate, Meng Wuya couldn't help feeling uncomfortable. Sigh, out of sight, out of mind. Inside the room, Xianing Chang's body stiffened for a long time, but she could still feel the hot breath in her ear, causing her heart to beat violently. After a long time, she suddenly reacted, Junior brother, you want to go? Shu, Xianing Chang quickly shut up and suddenly said, I also want to go there. You want to go too? Yang Kai looked at her in surprise. Xianing Chang nodded slightly. Master said that there are many mysteries hidden there and that there may really be the insights of a generation's alchemy grandmaster, so he wanted me to go and have a look. I just don't know if the owner of this place will be willing to accommodate. If it was little senior sister, perhaps old Xiao would agree. Yang Kai frowned and thought about it for a while before his eyes suddenly lit up. He still didn't know what was hidden in the myriad drug pond, but if he borrowed Xianing Chang's hand to investigate it first, it would be much more convenient. If he could go there himself, that would naturally be the best. But even if old Xiao treated him well, it was impossible for him to open the myriad drug pond so casually. Meng Wuya had saved his life, and Xianing Chang had the sacred spirit medicine body. Opening the myriad drug pond to him was already his bottom line. Little senior sister is really my savior. Coming at the right time, Yang Kai couldn't help but feel happy. Just as he was feeling happy, Yang Kai suddenly glanced towards the door, snorted lightly, and sent out a burst of energy. With a bang, the closed door opened. Aya. Dong Qing Yen, who had been listening to the conversation inside the room, was momentarily distracted and fell head first into the room. She fell to the ground. What are you sneaking around for? Yang Kai glared at her. Dong Qing Yen quickly got up from the ground. Patting the dust off her clothes, she giggled and stared at Xianing Chang with great interest. This is... Xianing Chang slowly got up. She asked curiously. My cousin, the Dong family's young lady. Yang Kai whispered. Dong family? Last time there was a Dong family member who went to High Heaven Pavilion. It's that Dong family, the one who went to High Heaven Pavilion last time was her brother. So it's young lady Dong. You're too polite, don't be an outsider. Dong Qingyan didn't treat herself as an outsider at all. Walking up to Xianing Chang, she carefully stared at her until Xianing Chang's face turned red, then smiled and said, You my sister-in-law, right? Xianing Chang was stunned, her heart in chaos, secretly glancing at Yang Kai and quickly waving her hand. No, your sister-in-law is someone else. I think so, sooner or later. Dong Qingyan nodded slightly and said in a firm tone, "Straightening up." She pretended to cough lightly, then walked over to the side and pulled out a chair, sitting down in front of Xia Ningchang and Yang Kai, her pair of watery eyes widening as she giggled. "Just pretend I don't exist and do what you need to do." This little girl was also experiencing her first awakening of love, so she was very curious about love between men and women. Now that she had finally caught a pair of golden boy and jade girl, she naturally wanted to study them carefully. Xia Ningchang was at a loss for what to do, so she hurriedly said, "Master is calling me, I'll go first." Saying so, she hurriedly left. Dong Qingyan was stunned. Her face filled with disappointment and annoyance, she frowned. "It shouldn't be like this." "Then what do you think it should be?" Yang Kai looked at her strangely. "You reunite after such a long separation. Should it be a series of loving words? Then the heavenly thunder ignites the earth's fire, and then..." As she spoke, Dong Qingyan couldn't bear it anymore, her face blushing as she felt embarrassed. Yang Kai sighed faintly. "It should have been like this, but since you came, it's not like this. Do you understand?" Dong Qingyan's tender body trembled, suddenly feeling extremely guilty. "Cousin, I was wrong. The next time you two are together, I won't bother you again." "Good, it's good you know you're wrong now, Scram." Yang Kai nodded lightly. In another room, Meng Wuya and Xiao Fuxing were drinking. After drinking several cups of tea, Meng Wuya grinned meaningfully and said, "Old man Xiao, what this old master's purpose for coming here this time? You should know, right?" Xiao Fuxing chuckled, put down his teacup and nodded. "Of course I know, this old master is duty-bound to learn alchemy from me. But there's another matter." "What? Is it inconvenient?" "It's not that it's inconvenient, it's just that I don't know if your disciple has the qualifications. If she doesn't have the qualifications, opening the myriad drug pond will be useless. The cost of opening the myriad drug pond is also very high." Hearing this, Meng Wuya laughed. "How could my disciple not have the qualifications? If she can't, no one in this world is qualified." "Are you so confident?" Xiao Fuxing frowned. Meng Wuya smiled lightly. "It's not that I'm confident, it's that I have confidence in her. If you don't believe me, you can test her now." Xiao Fuxing's expression shook, quickly nodding. "Good. This old master is also a bit impatient." "Disciple," Meng Wuya called out. Xia Ningchang quickly responded. "Old man Xiao wants to test your alchemy skills. Perform well, don't disappoint him." Meng Wuya grinned wickedly. Chapter 280. While Xiao Fuxing was testing Xia Ningchang, Yang Kai and Dong Qingyan also sat to the side and listened quietly. Old Xiao obviously wanted his apprentice to learn some alchemy knowledge from this test. As for Yang Kai, he was probably just a foil. This test lasted for an entire day, with old Xiao asking questions about various aspects of the alchemic way, starting from simple to deep, step by step, going from easy to difficult. Xia Ningchang answered one by one, her attitude serious and meticulous. Half a day later, old Xiao's expression changed to one of pleasant surprise, and a day later, to one of horror. The way he looked at Xia Ningchang had also changed. As if he had discovered a peerless treasure, his two eyes flashed with a green light, full of greed. Meng Wuya grinned from the side. Dong Qingyan also looked at Xia Ningchang with admiration and worship. Only Yang Kai's expression remained the same. A day later, old Xiao let out a long breath. "How is it?" Meng Wuya squinted towards Xiao Fuxing, a smug look on his face. Xiao Fuxing's expression became dignified as he pondered for a long time before replying. "Your basic skills and theoretical knowledge are very solid, and your experience is not inferior to this old man's." In the process of testing Xia Ningchang, old Xiao had also benefited a lot from her various answers. This was not so much a test as a mutual exchange of pointers. It was just Xiao Fuxing asking questions while Xia Ningchang answered. "Naturally," Meng Wuya said lightly. But the pride and smugness on his face could not be hidden, the corners of his mouth almost reaching his ears. Xiao Fuxing chuckled and glanced over at him meaningfully. Theory is theory. Sometimes, no matter how good one's theory is, when it comes to actual action, it's not the same. Meng Wuya was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He said in a sarcastic tone, "Old Xiao, you only care about the questions. If my disciple can't convince you, I'll change my surname to yours and call you my father." Dong Qingyan couldn't help laughing. She couldn't help laughing, her hands clutching her stomach as her shoulders shook. Xiao Fusheng also smiled bitterly and sighed. Looking at Xia Ningchang, he asked, "So far, what is the highest grade of pill you have refined?" "Mysterious grade low rank." Xia Ningchang replied softly. Xiao Fusheng's body shook as his old face immediately changed. He stared at her incredulously, as if he wanted to see the slightest trace of a joke, but those pure stars like stars without any impurities, how could there be any trace of a lie? Mysterious grade low rank. Didn't that mean that at such a young age was mysterious grade low rank alchemist? Medicine King's Valley's #1 genius, Qin Zhe, was already 35 years old this year, but he was only a heaven grade high grade. In terms of Sheng's age, Qing's SSSS, he's as to her. How could such a bye the Ningchang, by the bye her, to Qing Yen by asking, to ask bye. I've only refined it once, and it was rather strenuous. Oh. Xiao Fusheng couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief, thinking that this was quite reasonable. It seemed that he had only been lucky enough to refine a mysterious grade low-rank pill last time. Impossible. Quickly changing the subject, he asked, "What about heaven grade? I have never failed." "What?" Xiao Fusheng was shocked. "Never failed?" Xia Ningchang nodded slightly. "Impossible." Xiao Fusheng's brow furrowed. Even if this old master personally refined a pill, he could not guarantee a 100% success rate. Alchemy was always accompanied by a certain amount of risk, although Xiao Fusheng had reached the pinnacle of alchemy. Even though Xiao Fusheng was an alchemist, he could not completely avoid this. It could only be said that his chances of failure were very small. Meng Wuya laughed strangely. "There is nothing impossible in this world. If Brother Xiao is skeptical, just try." Xiao Fusheng's face was gloomy, but after a moment he stood up and beckoned to everyone, "Come with me." He took the lead and left. Everyone hurriedly followed. Following him into the house where he usually lived, there was a secret passage that led directly to the ground. Obviously, the underground of Hidden Cloud Peak was also quite famous. The group of people were all martial artists, so they landed lightly. After making a few turns at the bottom, they suddenly arrived at a huge stone chamber. This stone room was the size of a dozen houses and was filled with a variety of furnaces. There were also many medicine shelves filled with a variety of herbs. The number of herbs stored here was astonishing. "You have a lot of things here." As soon as Meng Wuya came in, he looked around, picking up a few things and touching them, unwilling to let go. Xiao Fusheng didn't care at all and just lightly snorted. This is the result of this old master's lifetime of hard work. Anyone who asked Xiao Fusheng to perform alchemy would always give him a lot of precious treasures as a reward, slowly accumulating them over the years. This was how this magnificent scene had come to be. Standing in the middle of the stone room, Xiao Fusheng looked at Xia Ningchang and said, "Martial nephew, you can use everything here. Choose the pill you are best at and let this old master take a good look at your methods." Xia Ningchang nodded and then began wandering around the stone room. Dong Qingyan and Yang Kai also quickly went up to help. Whatever herbs Xia Ningchang found, the two of them carried them for her. After a short while, the group returned. Xiao Fusheng stepped forward to inspect the herbs and couldn't help frowning. "These materials are all for refining heaven-grade mid-rank pills. Martial nephew, are you sure you can use them?" Xia Ningchang nodded slightly. "Then let's begin. Use whichever pill furnace you like. This old master has a lot of pill furnaces here." Xiao Fusheng smiled lightly. "There's no need." Xia Ningchang said softly. "There's no need for a pill furnace." Xiao Fusheng hadn't finished his sentence when Xia Ningchang's yuan qi suddenly surged. Her small hand picked up one of the medicinal herbs. Her true essence transformed into strands of translucent silk, penetrating into the medicinal herb in her hand. The medicinal efficacy quickly condensed from this medicinal herb, floating in the air. A drop of translucent crystal rain, a fragrant medicinal liquid was quickly formed. With a flick of her finger, this drop of medicinal liquid was transferred to her other hand, where it floated in the palm of her hand. Xia Ningchang picked up another herb and did the same thing. Soon another drop of crystal-clear medicinal liquid appeared. All the herbs whose medicinal efficacies had been extracted. All of them lost their spirituality and became like dead wood. Heavens! Dong Qingyan's eyes filled with amazement, her face also filled with shock. This was simply not alchemy, all kinds of magical methods were simply too shocking. Xiao Fusheng also looked shocked, muttering under his breath, medicinal liquids can be refined like this, how is this possible, how is this possible? Less than a quarter of an hour later. All the herbs had been condensed into medicinal liquid and gathered in Xia Ningchang's small hand. Waving her hands, she sent one drop of yuan qi after another into the medicinal liquid. A moment later, she suddenly clenched her hand and the surrounding world energy quickly gathered. It was unknown what kind of transformation had occurred, but when she opened her hand again, a green pill had taken shape. This pill was round and smooth, without the slightest impurities. On its surface, there were lines that made the whole pill look full of spirituality and mystery. Pill veins. Xiao Fusheng's eyes suddenly widened as he exclaimed in shock. Yang Kai's brow furrowed. He still remembered the first time he had seen Xiao Fusheng. The latter had just finished refining a pill. At that time, when he had come out with that pill, he had muttered something related to pill veins. "Martial uncle, please examine it." Xia Ningchang picked up the pill and handed it over to Xiao Fusheng. "Softer, softer, my little grandaunt. Don't ruin the pill veins with your fingernails." Xiao Fusheng's hands trembled as he received the pill, as if he was on a pilgrimage, his face filled with piety. "Good for nothing," Meng Wuya timely ridiculed. "Layman, what do you know?" Xiao Fusheng angrily scolded before gently picking up the pill. Placing it in front of his eyes, he examined it closely. "It really is pill veins. It really is pill veins." At this moment, Xiao Fusheng no longer had any trace of the demeanor of a grandmaster. Instead, he looked like a country bumpkin who had suddenly walked into a big city, completely losing all sense of elegance. "Master, what are pill veins?" Dong Qingyan asked softly. "Pill veins." Xiao Fusheng gently exhaled. Pill veins are the highest manifestation of an alchemist's attainments. They are the lines on a pill, just like the meridians in our bodies. Pill veins are the meridians of a pill. Pills are divided into mysterious, heaven, earth, and mortal, but for pills of the same grade, there is a big difference between having pill veins and not having pill veins. A pill that has pill veins is equivalent to stealing the good fortune of heaven and earth, and its medicinal efficacy is more than twice that of a pill without pill veins. Moreover, the existence of these pill veins can prevent the loss of a pill's world energy, so no matter how many years it has been stored, its medicinal efficacies will not be lost. Xiao Fusheng sighed. This old master has been performing alchemy for many years, and in the last few years I have been studying pill veins, but I have only been able to occasionally refine a few common-grade pills with pill veins. Earth-grade pills basically never appear, as for heaven-grade pills, not even once. Suddenly changing the topic, he stared at Xia Ningchang with a burning gaze. "Martial nephew, what is the probability that a heaven-grade pill you refine will form pill veins?" Xia Ningchang bit her lip and timidly glanced over at Meng Wuya, not knowing how to answer. Grandmaster Xiao had suffered too many shocks today, so she really couldn't bear to tell the truth. Meng Wuya grinned meaningfully. "Just tell me." "About 50 to 60%. See?" Xiao Fusheng sucked in a breath of cold air. If 50 to 60% pills could form pill veins, each pill with pill veins would have twice the medicinal efficacies of the others. This kind of method, it was simply amazing. Looking shocked, Xiao Fusheng asked again, "What about pill clouds? Have you ever seen pill clouds above pill veins?" Xia Ningchang slowly shook her head. "And it should be because your strength is not enough. If you can reach the immortal ascension boundary, you should be able to refine pill clouds." Xiao Fu Xing nodded repeatedly, his hands trembling as he paced around the stone room. After a while, he suddenly said, "All of you go out, I have something to say to Brother Meng." The expressions of the three youngsters became serious, and they hurriedly saluted and took their leave. A moment later, Meng Wuya's angry shout came from below, "In your dreams! This old master only has this one disciple in his life, how could I give her to you? If I had known you were such an ungrateful wretch, I wouldn't have saved your life and let you die at the hands of those sixth-order monster beasts." Xiao Fu Xing retorted, "That's one thing, you don't know alchemy, what can you teach her? Such a good piece of jade in your hands is simply a waste. Worshipping this old master is the right thing to do." Meng Wuya laughed strangely, "I can't teach her, but you can. I can teach her everything I've learned in my life. I can help her become a mysterious grade top-rank alchemist in the shortest time possible." "Mysterious grade top-rank is nothing, you look down on my disciple too much." Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.